Hey guys, this is Mount Walk, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about Premodern again, and I got probably a big one for you. Probably the next couple ones are going to be big ones. Actually, the last one was a big one too, when I was doing the Rock, the Premodern deck for that. This one, gonna be big. Gonna be a big one. This is definitely gonna be something you're thinking about, at least one of the two ones. So there's two mono red decks you're gonna be concerned about, or red X or whatever, and then a control deck. So either, well, whatever. But anyways, you want to be concerned about Sligh. That's a big thing. And this was named after God, was it the guy Paul Sligh who came up with the idea in like, oh, excuse me, 95, 96 or something. I think he called the deck Giba, which was some word in Goblin for, I don't know, I think it was something from D&D. Anyways, really old, really weird, and it's basically one of it's the first sort of aggressive weenie decks. And so here we go. We got Sligh, or as you can see, basically all these other uh, sort of red decks, which will fall under this umbrella, which I'll talk a little bit about later. But let's get to the good stuff, my friends. So what we have here is probably the best deck in the format. I don't say that lightly. Uh, I mean that I played it against a bunch of different decks. Not every deck, not even close, but maybe like a quarter to maybe half of the decks that I've seen in the format, and nothing has felt unwinnable. I've played it against, with people that weren't super familiar with the deck, where I've only were kind of maybe novices or mediocre, and they were able to do very well, like 50-50 kind of thing. Um, so this deck has legs for sure, even with people that aren't the most, proficient at the game. Um, there's a lot of different ways to build it. A lot of different ways to build it. I mean, nothing changes radically, but there are, depending on what sort of tactical lines you want to take. For example, some cards like Lightning Bolt and Fire Blast are non-negotiable. Same thing for something like Jackal Pup or Grim Lavamancer, Curse Scroll, or whatever. These cards, they're not going anywhere. These cards are amazing, are really great. Um, but there are other cards that are functionally similar, say like Seal of Fire or Fire Blast. I have my own favorites I like to play. It sort of depends. But anyways. So there's a lot of way. I don't want to go too much on that because this deck is pretty simple, good, but pretty simple. You don't want to, you know, overthink it. It's so well. Anyways, we'll get to that when we get to it. It has game against anything. I mean, it has a shitload of fucking reach. Holy shit, does it have a shitload of reach. Um, I mean, not only that, it can actually grind pretty well too. And that would be because of the 4 Grim Lavamancer, and then the 4 Curse Scroll, and then oftentimes the Sulfuric Vortex, which is again more repeatable damage. Lots and lots of repeatable damage. And other sources of repeatable or damage too. Multi-use cards, say like Mog Fanatic or Barbarian Ring. Um, it's not even that hurt by a lot of hate cards because there's a lot of different answers you can use to set hate cards. So that's good. The deck has a really high power level for this format, and it's very close, I think, to the Legacy version of this deck, which basically is only missing like Chain Lightning, really. Um, And that's a big thing. That's a big thing. So, well, against creature decks, you really want the searing effects, but those are like from Zendikar and forward and stuff. So that's a problem. Those are good cards, but you can't play them, unfortunately. But the deck is really great as is, anyways. So, Curse Scroll sort of fills that other sort of niche. And speaking of Curse Scroll, this deck is actually kind of tricky to play. Sequencing is extremely important with this deck. Extremely important. I mean, obviously between like winning and losing, kind of important. Which cards you play first, which you play second. Do you play your Curse Scroll turn 1 when it's free of counters, or do you play it later when they're out of counter? I mean, and even just activating Curse Scroll, when you have during your upkeep, it feels like a kind of a colorless Vendilion click, because you can click them during their end step, during their upkeep, during the draw step, during their main phase, and so on and so forth. And Curse Scroll very much so feels like that. And Curse Scroll, of course, is great when you're flooding out, and you're able to, use that mana efficiently. But anyway, so what does this deck look like? Well, you're not going to be surprised if you've played a lot of mono red decks. So this is it. This is the deck. I don't think anyone's concerned or confused or like, what's that? So, one sec. Oh, I've been talking so much. I'm just so excited. My mouth is so dry. Oh, I must take a drink. I must drink. I am alive, so I must drink. Oh, that's good stuff. That's good stuff, my friends. So, all the guys we got, nothing's going to be too weird. Jacob 1 mana, 2/1. Great against control and combo decks, a little less good against aggro decks if they got dudes. Mog Fanatic kills birds and elves, kills a lot of different things. If they try and board wipe you, it sacks to deal them a damage. Awesome. Grim Lavamancer, incredible. Good enough now, kills tons of dudes. Good enough then, for sure. Fill up graveyard, super fast, super easy. Wonderful. Ball Lightning, this card is like one of the hardest cards to play in the deck. When do you play it? How do you play it? Especially post board, you gotta watch out for stuff like Hydro Blast and Blue Elemental Blast. And do you board it out? Do you keep it in? I love Ball Lightning. It deals a ton of damage. It's really good against a lot of decks in certain situations, or especially pre-board. It's wonderful. I mean, just like about a third of their life total, just 3 mana, 6 damage, or you trample over a dude. Ball Lightning's incredible. If you got dark versions of this card, play them in this deck. It is awesome. People will be like, wow, you blew my dick off. Like, where'd my dick go? Why'd you blow my dick off? My dick has been blown off. And then let's go into the burn spells. We got a shitload of them. I mean, we got a shitload of burn. We got 4 bolts, of course. Staple, incredible. 4 incinerate. Oh, it's so bad. No, incinerate's amazing. Why is incinerate so good? Because there's a lot of annoying regenerating guys like Masticore, Spirit Monger, River Boa, Spectral Lynx. I mean, all over the place. These guys are just, I mean, they're everywhere. I guess even what's that 6/3 guy from Torment, the black one that regenerates? Chain or something rather? I can't remember. That guy's actually probably playable too. Let's just say this is a ton of annoying guys that regenerate. Incinerate prevents regeneration, 2 mana, 3 damage, instant speed. Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. Great during combat, great for killing stuff. Wonderful. I chose Seal of Fire over something like, say, Firebolt or 4 Volcanic Hammer, because you can carve out with it. So it's a very unique burn spell where you can curve out with it. So if you have, like on turn 2, you can play your Mog Fanatic. Turn 2, you can play like Jackal-Pup Sealfire or Curse Scroll Sealfire or Sealfire, whatever, and so you can use your mana more efficiently, which is awesome. It's incredible. It's really great for like on other turns, like turn 3 you can attack. They got like a Ravenous Baloth, you can double burn it much easier with, say, Curse Scroll into a Sealfire and then still play another 1-drop or something. So that's great. I mean, that's awesome. That's what really sold me on Sealfire, is that it's so good at, like, you know, being able to use your mana very efficiently. And then of course Volcanic Hammer is just an additional burn spell. I mean, this could easily be something like Price of Progress if you're in a meta with a lot of decks with, say, a bunch of non-basics. I mean, that's even better because it's instant and deals more damage, and of course it scales. And then the lands, and then, I mean, well, the land, basically the only thing that's different is the Barbarian Rings. And yeah, they have a little bit of dissynergy with Grim Lavamancer sometimes, occasionally. But if you ever play this deck in Legacy, you'll understand how easily it is to fuel both Grim Lavamancer and 1 or 2 Barbarian Rings. Not a big deal. So, I mean, Jackal-Pup is really the center of this deck. 1 mana, 2/1, kill everything. This guy just swings for 2 over and over and over and over again, and that's really great. That's a good burn spell, basically, you know? The creatures do a lot of work, a lot of really good stuff. And so you could play, I played Goblin Patrol in this deck, which is pretty good. The playing the Echo over red is not a huge deal most of the time. And that's a great spell. Goblin Cadets is incredibly amazing versus control and combo decks that are very creature light or play no creatures. Because, well, it's just a 1 mana 2/1 with no drawback then. And so, like I said, there's a lot of different options for burn spells. I mentioned some of them, like more Volcanic Hammers, Firebolt. Price of Progress obviously is a big one, real big one. I mean, these are great spells, they're great cards, but I just chose ones that I think were just fit my playstyle and were just better overall in a random sort of metagame. There are other variations of this, like I sort of alluded to in the first slide, is that you can slide. Oh, I made a pun. Ponza, or Red Deck Wins, you'll end up playing things like Avalanche Riders. That's a good guy. 4 mana, 2/2 nukes lands. That's good. But it's really Wasteland and Rashad Port. Those are great cards. In this format, though, now remember last time people played Red Deck Wins, like when 2004-ish, 2005-ish. They're playing against Affinity and that old sort of extended format. They weren't able to play stuff like Black Vice. That's huge. I mean, Black Vice isn't very good in a lot of respects because it's inconsistent. But it's a little bit of a different situation when you're playing, say, like a Ponza, and you're just being like, well, I'm just mono red lane destruction deck. That's a different situation. And so Black Vice is very, very good there. And so that's definitely something to think of. And I mean, obviously Black Vice is very good against, well, a lot of decks, control decks specifically. So it's good there. It's good in conjunction with lane destruction because the problem is, like, people can break out of the Vice lock, you know, and they'll play more stuff and do this and that and the other, and then Black Vice is basically worthless. That's not where we wanna be at. We really want to maximize the power of Vice, so I wouldn't play Vice unless I guess maybe if it was in the sideboard, but definitely with if I'm playing like main deck Wasteland or Rich Import Rich Import. Oh, excuse me for a second. I just get so excited to think about all this land destruction. I gotta take a drink. I'm too excited, my friends. Just too excited. Okay. So that's kind of the thing is like there was an old vintage deck too. I might as well reminisce a little bit. Right around when Onslaught came out with the fetch lands, it was called it was an old vintage. I already said that. It was an old vintage deck. It was called Ankh Sligh, and it played Ankh of Mishra with the typical Sligh stuff. Well, why was it called Ankh Sligh? Because all these other decks would play like their multicolored, their dual lands and their fetch lands, and Ankh of Mishra would deal them 5 damage. So they'd sack it and take 1. They'd take 2 for playing that, and then when the other land would come to play, they'd take 2 from that. So it'd take 5 damage total. So that would be, that's a huge amount of damage for just a 2-mana card that just sits on the battlefield, and it's colorless too. Colorless damage, just like Black Vice. That's really good, really powerful. So that's kind of what Ponza would probably be playing is Black Vice, as well as Ankh of Mishra. Red Deck Wins, however, would probably just be just like the old extended versions of Red Deck Wins. Exactly the same as, well, very close to what we'd be playing now, except instead of Ball Lightning, they would be playing for Blistering Firecat. Blistering Firecat deals more damage than Ball Lightning, but it's easier to cast off the whole morph thing with your extra colorless lands, and in addition, it's much better versus Color Hosers, of course. So that's not a trivial difference. So Blistering Firecat, Ball Lightning, hard to say who's better in some situations actually, but I usually just choose Ball Lightning and the regular Sligh. Blistering Firecat definitely if you're playing 24 lands, 4 waste, 4 port. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. And the other thing is it's very important to try to, until the metagame sort of congeals around what's the best and what's not, or whatever kind of cards. There's, well, you got Sulfuric Vortex, Anarchy, Pyroblast, Boil, Flaring Pain, etc., against all these different hate cards. So what you want to do is just try and play the best ones you think will work. If you have a particular metagame and people only play decks X, Y, and Z, build it for that. Obviously, that's the best way to do it. Otherwise, it's doesn't make any sense. Obviously, to build sideboard for a metagame you don't expect. And that's the most important thing, I think. So you have really powerful sideboard cards, but they don't do shit, obviously, if you don't line them up against the decks you're playing. So, in Premodern, this is the deck you want to beat. You want to beat Sligh. You want to beat it. If you can't beat it, you gotta have a real good reason for playing your deck. Maybe you beat everything else, that would be fine. Or maybe you have better matchups versus everything else. Or maybe you're only 60-40 for this and 80-20 for everything else. Okay. But you really want to beat it, or at least have a strong sideboard plan. Fortunately, there are a lot of good white and blue and even green and black. I guess even, really like all sideboard cards. Red has Pyroclasm, black has stuff like Spitting Darkness, green has Spike Feeder and Ravenous Baloth, blue is Hydroblast and Chill, white has fucking a million cards against red. But anyways, so yeah, you want to make sure you can at least beat Sligh or at least competitive against it. It's one of the more popular decks. And some of the more popular decks in the format, well, it's Sligh or Goblins. They attack from different angles, so not one is not better than the other, but they do different things. Goblins can splash black or green for additional sideboard options, so that's important to remember. But they are very different decks. Sligh is just the typical weenie rush aggro deck. Goblins will grind you out, and you gotta be careful, because they do not play the same. So don't make that mistake. And we've got Landstill. Landstill is, well, just you got some creature lands, and you got some standstills, and you got some typical blue-white control stuff. Sometimes they're blue-red control decks. Sometimes it's Dreadstill with Phyrexian Dreadnought and Stifle. And then you probably got some sort of survival deck. Probably the Bullrash Shapeshifter based decks. Those are good ones. Then after that, you probably got some sort of rock style deck, some sort of Tog style deck, and some sort of other hard combo deck, a Lurin or Bargain or some sort of storm based thing. Again, it's hard to tell. I haven't played everything, but these four are probably really what you're looking for. Some sort of mono red deck, some sort of blue X control deck. Those ones are the ones you really want to beat. And the great thing about Sligh is that it's got a reach. Lots and lots of reach. So no matter how bad you screw up, you can still just burn them out. You can still just be like, oh, I have double Fire Blast and kill them. For a lot of the matchups I've tested against this deck is it doesn't feel unfavored at most of them. I might have to test more against pre-board against the Rock. I mean, obviously pre-board, post-board is a different situation, but I think the Rock would actually be kind of tricky to deal with. And it's actually a little bit trickier to play, and the trickiness just involves sequencing your plays. It's all about, everyone you have the same strategy. Every red deck is just beat the shit out of you until you die, but the tactics is different. Goblins is like, I play some dudes and you kill them. Well, I play some more dudes, draw a bunch of cards, grind you out, and then kill you with like a Skirk Prospector and a Goblin Lackey or something, right? Like, you can just, they play a thing and you're just like, well, okay, well, I'll just gem palm it and draw a card and kill it, and so goblins can grind you out. But this deck it's like, okay, I'm hiding behind 100 walls, okay, like bolt, fire blast, you're dead. That's it. Not much you can do about that. So it is about sequencing. It is about figuring out what is the best play in each situation, what is the most conducive to your strategy. So you got to be careful. You got to be very considerate, thinking about what plays are the best, and then utilizing Curse Scroll is very important. Very important. It definitely is, like I said earlier, kind of got the sort of Vendilion click thing. Like, do you want to do their upkeep or their main phase, or the draw step, end step, or attack step? I mean, that's important. There's a lot to think about. It's very easy. That's the great thing about Sligh. It's easy. It's cheap, minus the Curse Scrolls, of course. But there's so much going on. So much going on. Plus, you can foil it out pretty easy. You can get like the foil ball lightnings, which are like, I don't know, Judge promos, I think. Same thing with the lightning bolts, although those are really expensive. And I'm pretty sure there's foil jackal buffs too, and Monk Fanatics. And obviously there's foil Grim Lavamansters. Everything else should be foil. There might be foil Incinerates. Well, I think almost all the deck is all bordered and sweet. Anyways, I don't want to get too far in it, but this deck, make yourself familiar with it. If you're familiar with Burn and say Legacy or something, this deck shouldn't be too confusing to you. Pay attention to it, look at it. If you want to play Premodern, look at this and Goblins and Landstill and probably some sort of survival thing. Figure those decks out. That'll help you the most for doing well. Anyways, that's it, my friends. Thank you for stopping by and have a great day.